On Saturday, October 8th, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, CIG will be rolling out their annual CitCon, known to the community as CitCon. CIG has historically used this event to show off their next big tech demo for the game. In the early years, CIG would flavor this event with an unhealthy dose of hopium. This is what's planned for the far future when the tech becomes available type of show. Promises were made in those early years, and there is certainly some skepticism if some of those early dreams and goals will ever be realized. In recent years, CIG has scaled back somewhat, aiming for a more realistic view of what can be delivered in the next year. As last year's headliner was The Road to Pyro, the suggestion seemed to be that Pyro was dropping in the next year, rather than just the road that led to it. This year, the theme is The Road to 4.0, which is effectively the same thing as last year, as, when Pyro drops, it will do so with patch 4.0. At the moment, just based on the deliverables of the progress tracker, it seems like 4.0 and Pyro will be dropping around this time next year, if not a hair sooner. Last year, with lockdown, we were supposed to be lacking a keynote speech from Chris Roberts, and the assumption was that there would be a series of Inside Stars' and S shows back to back. It was a bit of a surprise then when we got something of a vertical slice of gameplay through a Pyro outpost, along with the introduction of the 400i after much teasing and leaks. With all this in mind, and in anticipation of my live stream for that day, let's take a shallow dive preview into what will be on tap for CitizensCon this year. The first presentation on the docket will be Planetary Pyro. This will be a show run by Maximilian Keilich, a senior environmental artist at CIG. This show will be exploring the 6 planets of Pyro, covering a much larger area than the tiny Stanton system we've known thus far. Compared to Stanton, Pyro is huge, and where Stanton is one of the smaller systems by volume, Pyro is one of the largest. Most of the lore we have on Pyro was written back in 2014, predating Planet Tech. Back then, the idea was that the planets of Pyro were uninhabited. Likely in this first show, based on what we saw last year, we're about to hear that things have changed drastically. Typically, CIG tries to crowbar in a new ship in the first presentation, but just looking at this presentation, I'm not sure if they'll be able to. The second show, Design Brief Investigations, will be held by Luke Presley and Elliot Maltby, the lead designer and principal systems designer for CIG. Luke is a well-known commodity and has often appeared on Inside Star Citizen and even several CitCon presentations over the years. As Luke Presley is the architect of the prison gameplay experience, among many others in the verse, he will now be showing off the new investigation missions. If you watched my playthrough of the Gundo Kovalex mission, I am definitely a fan of these different kinds of missions that will be far more story-driven than the ones we've seen so far. A couple years back, when they were introducing Microtech at the CitCon that year, they had an interesting infiltration mission where the player had to sneak into a complex and steal data. No shooting, just stealth smash and grab. Will we be seeing missions like this come to the verse? Fingers crossed, right? The new Underground is the next presentation and stars Ian Leyland. We've seen something like this in 2021 on a game dev live stream, when a bunker was expanded by adding an entrance to a cave. It's weird to think of the bunkers as dated, but they really are begging for an expansion and an update. This presentation looks like it'll take the idea of a bunker or a cave and expand it into an urban setting. Should be a fun show. The next event in the lineup looks to be the biggest in the terms of the number of devs involved, with 5 lead and senior devs. The need for multiple speeds will talk about the new flight experience that will likely be getting in 4.0, if not sooner. Chris Roberts has shown a strong interest in slowing combat down and making it more of a visceral knife fight rather than jousting, or one side just sprinting away at the first sign of trouble, more of a World War II aerial combat experience. Changes are coming, and this will likely be one of the biggest changes in a game that centers on being a space flight simulator. We know aerons are coming, flight controls that'll work in atmosphere, along with the new master modes, and these will define the next generation of flight in the verse. Loreville Rodeos may be our best shot at a keynote, as it should come at kind of the apex of the event. This will be a presentation guided by 3 artists: Eric Gagnon, Maxine Gendon, and Ian Leyland. Whether it's the keynote or not, Loreville was the first city we had in the verse. Given all they've learned and all the tech developed, since Loreville was introduced in 2018, it should be quite a show of what they can create next. Will there be more to see, more to interact with, more places, nooks and crannies to explore? The safe bet is on yes, and as an artist myself, I'm looking forward to this one. Powerplay, headed by Dan Truffin and Thorsten Lyman, will focus in on the resource management system. This has been on the progress tracker for a while, but it hasn't been clear how significant it was until a recent Inside Star Citizen let it slip that this would be the system that would govern most of the NPC production nodes, as well as make multi-crew gameplay a reality, something that, to this point, has been glaringly absent in the verse. Much like the Need for Speed presentation, this one will be showing us a likely sea change to the game as a whole. This presentation, like Tony Z's presentation on Quanta a few years back, will be a huge deal for the success or failure of this project as a whole, as multi-crew gameplay is a cornerstone of why many backers threw in their first pledge, myself included. Finally, the whole show ends with Talking Ship 2952, with fellow Ginger John Crew, along with Ben Curtis and Paul Jones, talking about the ships that are currently in production, like the Banu Merchantman, along with other ships in and out of the pipeline. There's almost certainly going to be at least 2 concept ships sold, and if the progress tracker is any indicator, for the first time both could be flyable. Typically one ship is small, what we like to call an LTI token, and the other is typically enormous. It should be interesting what they drop and which industry it falls into. There's certainly a lot of gaps in the ship lineups, especially on the alien side. So could we be getting an alien ship? It's unlikely, as IA tends to be human focused, but you never know. They will also have a vote on which will be the next ship to come, but both times CIG has done this in the past, all 4 ships being voted on eventually made their way in. It just so happens that we can pick which one is first, which is still kinda cool. Likely all of them are some ways along the pipeline, however. And that's it. Looks like it'll be a fun show, and I'll be here streaming it live, giving my thoughts as we go while trying to shut up long enough to actually follow what's being said. Join me and we'll all geek out together over this madness we call the verse. See me there.